We're pretty much at the limit of borrowing at the moment.
You are supposed to be the servants of the people. The people are supposed to be your bosses. And to me, the people doesn't even realize that.
Good evening. My name is Ralph from St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I'm going to say something that's controversial. CARICOM has gotten in its own way.
I want to be very clear that there is a dangerous tendency in our countries.
This program is talk about the facts. We must bring the facts.
Time to face the facts.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are watching this edition of Time to Face the Facts. We are going to be looking at some issues with the trade unions in Grenada, trade unions that represent public sector workers in particular. They have some issues on the table with the government of Grenada, and they have been in discussions for a while. In recent weeks, I would say, the discussions have taken a certain turn, and we are going to hear from the unions this evening exactly what is on the table, what is off the table, and where and how we go forward. And I invite you to get your cup of coffee, get your drink, get your popcorn, whatever you want to get, and stay with me right here as we look at these issues affecting workers. We'll be right back.
Stop the spread of germs that can make you and others sick. Cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. If you don't have a tissue, use your elbow. Wash hands often, especially after coughing or sneezing into a tissue.
This has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Feel good facts.
Help prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Welcome back to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair. Let's welcome the representatives of our unions, and I will ask them each to introduce themselves and maybe say a few words about the union, very few, and the people you represent, and then we will launch into our substantive discussion about the issues that are currently on the table to be settled. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. I want to start the introductions with Brother Marvin. Brother Marvin, you go first.
Thank you most kindly, and greetings to your viewers. My name is Marvin Andel, the President General of the Grenada Union of Teachers. The Grenada Union of Teachers represent members at the pre-primary, primary, secondary, and tertiary level. We are approximately 1,800 members strong. And of course, we are a force in the union movement in Grenada.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andal. And Rachel Roberts, the female union leader in our midst this evening. Your introduction, please, and a little bit about your union.
Good afternoon, good morning to viewers wherever you may be. I am Rachel Roberts, the president of the Grenada Public Workers Union. We represent public officers all over the government service in ministries, departments. We represent nurses, doctors, maids, cook. We represent members also in the statutory bodies across Grenada. To be exact, 5 statutory bodies.
Thank you, Rachel. And the other representative here, I will leave him to introduce himself. In Grenada, he needs no introduction, but I know there will be viewers outside of Grenada, so let them know who you are.
Okay, good evening to everyone. I'm Andre Lewis, President General of the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. And our union represents a wide cross-section of workers. We represent workers in the hotel and tourism industry, manufacturing, telecommunications, airport, seaport, retail, banking, financial services, bureau, radio, television, etc.
All right, thank you very much, Andre. And while you have the floor, can you just give a little background on the situation and the current environment right now? What is happening between the public workers and the government? I don't know if that's where you want to start, but that is where I would jump right in for a little update, bring us up to speed, tell us how we got to where we are today.
Sure, no difficulty. But before I do this, I think it is very much important for us to once again pay tribute to our workers and the people of Grenada and the region as a whole, because after all, we are one region, one working class. Although today we are focusing on Grenada, and we are paying tribute to our workers, our teachers, our nurses, our doctors, our maids, our cooks, our sanitation workers, our retail store workers, just a whole gambit that this pandemic has demonstrated the importance of these workers. And it is therefore in this context that we need to understand and appreciate what is happening. And we are here simply because we have an employer, the government of Grenada, who decided to break the law, to take a unilateral decision not to pay the increases that we have agreed upon through mutual negotiations and agreement signed at the end of 2019 into 2020. And the government has engaged us last minute to first and foremost give up the 4%. We have indicated that we can engage in some form of discussion, but there are certain conditions that must be attached, taking into account the level of mistrust that exists with the government and the public sector, that have its roots to a large extent in the struggle of 2018 and 2019, the pension issue, the docking of salaries, you indicating that if you do not work, you ought not to be paid, and the government unilaterally breaking rules and regulations had made it extremely difficult for workers to entertain some of the advances made by the government, taking into account, as we have said, the high level of mistrust that has been demonstrated, taking into account the fact that the government can find, as it wants, at its own whims and fancies, monies to do almost any different things that appears to give them political mileage. And therefore, we are in this position to a large extent based on the behavior of the government. And of critical importance is the fact that the government, as the leading entity in our tri-island state, have found it necessarily to just break the law, to just break an agreement, which sets a dangerous precedent for the private sector and for others to follow. But bearing in mind that this has serious implications for industrial relations and the smooth industrial relations and industrial relations climate that is necessary, especially in a period like the pandemic. And therefore, the unions must be praised, and the workers must be praised so far for engaging in a mature and a responsible approach. Because had it not been the pandemic, and had it not been the challenges that can be faced by industrial dispute, it is very likely that more serious industrial actions may have been engaged in. I'm not saying that it will not occur, because the government seems to be pushing us in that direction, and we have that responsibility to our members and to the wider population to ensure that there is no rogue employer and that workers' rights are not quarantined or locked down during COVID-19. So that's the framework under which we operate. But at the same time, our workers continue to report to work every day. Our workers continue to produce and perform beyond the call of duty. Let me correct myself, within the call of duty, because beyond the call of duty, I know is many times is beyond the call of duties, but we see this in this context within the call of duty, because this period calls for it. And this period calls for us to receive our increases so that we can help take care of our families, taking into account the different challenges that we face.
Thank you very much, Andre. And when was the last time, because you mentioned that this agreement was signed from 2019 into 2020, and that at the last minute, the unions were called in and to forego the 4%. But when was the last time you had a sit-down discussion with the government team then regarding this increase and how it is supposed to be managed? Marvin, you want to respond to that?
Our last direct engagement with government, as far as the Grenada Union of Teachers is concerned, was on All Year's Day. That is the last time we engaged on this. At the meeting, we stated our position that our members were not prepared to have the deferral. The leader of the team, the Honorable Oliver Joseph, gave indication to us that he would take that to his cabinet colleagues and get back to us. To this point, we have had no official communication from government. What we've seen since is statements been published by way of the GIS in regards to the government's inability to pay. When the infringement on the collective agreement occurred at the end of January, we immediately wrote to the Labor Commissioner, because the same agreement says what should happen in the event that a dispute should arise out of the agreement. Now, as it stands, there is a dispute because the agreement, the letters of the agreement were not followed. And we have begun the process of having it addressed. So we had a first meeting with the Labor Commissioner yesterday, and he has given indication that he will get in touch with us and to arrange for a meeting between our side and the government side to work out a solution.
And by yesterday, you mean on Tuesday, the 9th of February, you had that meeting with the Labor Commissioner?
Yes, we had that meeting.
Okay.
And we await the government's response.
Okay. Rachel, was that December 31st meeting, was the Public Workers Union included in that?
Yes, the last day that we sat down with the government negotiating team was the 31st of December, All Year's Day. And we met with the government of Grenada, and we explained to them what were the conditions under which we would defer our 4% increases. Because mind you, as Brother Andre rightly put it, government of Grenada was asking us to give up our 4%, to forego our 4%. And we said to them, no, we have to go to our membership and hear from our membership. And our membership said to us, no, we do not want to give up our 4%, but what we can do to help the government of Grenada is to forego the 4% for a period of time, and approximately 6 months. And they said there are some things that we would want government of Grenada to honor and to obey the laws of Grenada, because for consecutive years now, over 25 years now, the government of Grenada has continuously broken the law of the land of our Labor Code section 29(5) in the appointment of contract officers. So there are persons now holding contracts for some 25 years. And they said to us, we must be appointed. So we said to the government of Grenada, we would like our members to be appointed, and would you be able to give us that assurance that members would be appointed? And if that is the assurance we have, we would defer, not forgo, defer our 4% until July.
Let me stick a question in here, Rachel. When you have workers on contract for 25 years who get appointed after that, does their pension in particular kick in at that time, or is there any consideration for the 25 years they were under contract?
And that is the thing that we believe why the government of Grenada have workers on contract, because pension is a great issue, and pension workers must be paid their pension. And if we are going to have workers appointed after 25 years, we must have some kind of agreement, some kind of arrangement with the government of Grenada to ensure that the years of service are taken into consideration. Because after giving all these years of service to an employer, you cannot tell me that after 25 years and you appoint me, my service would go to zero. No. So those are things that we definitely would have had to work out. We had to work these things out around the table, around the negotiating table, and come to agreements. And even when we were doing our pension discussions, these were some of the things that we also had placed on the table in the pension negotiations that government decided that they were not going to honor, and that they had no understanding with us and no agreement that we should get our 25% gratuity, right? So these are some of the things that concerns that we had, because these workers, it means that the public service is now very compromised, because we have a workforce that the majority of workers are actually contracted workers, which means that they are not appointed through the Public Service Commission. So it means that when the established officers leave the service, who are now in the minority and are the most senior officers, leave the service, it means that we would have a public service with no established officers. What does that tell you? The Public Service Commission becomes null and void. The Public Service Commission becomes irrelevant. It tells us that we have a government that has control over workers, that can do with workers as it pleases. It will not have to abide by the Constitution or any rules and regulations of the Public Service Commission. It would be able to appoint, fire, hire, and do with workers as it very well pleases. So it would have total unilateral control of the public service.
You have mentioned that the government, the employer, has been breaking the law. Has any of these actions been challenged in the court? Andre, you want to respond?
Truthfully.
Well, what we have done, we have different unions have approached this differently. There are cases where, let me put it this way, with all due respect to our legal system, there is a reality that matters in the court can take forever. And therefore, the Technical and Allied Workers Union in particular prefers the streets and the boardrooms where we can sit to work out matters. So for instance, there are sometimes that we have taken industrial action to get workers permanent because the court system doesn't require you to be highly skilled, too much highly skilled, but any lawyer can tap a matter in court for the longest while. And so the short answer is that I'm not aware of this matters going to court, because there is no argument as to the interpretation or application of Section 29.5. It is just a blatant refusal by the government as the single largest employer and some employers from doing what is right. And then therefore you can go to court and there will be an issue as to from one court to the other and then to the next court, etc., etc. And therefore our preference has been one of trying to resolve the matters at the boardrooms through negotiations, and if and when that fails, through industrial action.
Marvin, I know that the teachers are one group that was affected or has been affected by some actions in relation to, well, not just the teachers, across the board for public workers, their salaries being docked about 2 years ago when they took action to press for certain demands. How is that matter going, and how has it impacted on the current negotiations for the 4%, which has not been paid as yet since the beginning of 2021?
The teachers were very much hurt and offended by the actions of government, which we deem to have been illegal, in attempting as the executive to punish public officers or discipline public officers. The actions were taken by even the utterances of the head of the executive as a disciplinary action. And the discipline of public officers is in the court or is in the corner of the Public Service Commission. So what was done to the teachers was wrong in the manner in which it was done. Now, the pains of that period was carried over. So in asking the teachers to show some leniency to government by itself was a difficult sell, because if you hurt someone and you come to them and ask for a favor, it is less likely that they will be willing to do you that good turn when you would have in fact caused them pain and suffering. So on the onset, it was a difficult sell of foregoing or deferring the payment to teachers in particular, because of the widespread and massive deductions that were made to their salaries back then. So the vast majority of teachers were of the view that they would want nothing else but the due increase be paid in January as stated in the signed agreement. But what made bad matters worse was the fact that coming towards the end of the year, the public learned, because of a release by WRB, that in fact that significant funds to the tune of over $60 million was transferred from the government to WRB in exchange for the repurchase of the Grenada shares. The explanation given was that those monies seem to have come from the public purse. So if you have that kind of money and can create that kind of expenditure, what is a mere 4% to pay to the persons who you're contractually obligated to pay? It would cause an increase of about $1 million a month to the wage bill. Now, we were able to sustain a wage bill of approximately $24 million a year when the revenue had declined. Based on the budget that was presented, there is a projected 6% growth in the economy for 2021. So if an economy that could have sustained 24 million is going to grow by 6% in a particular year, then to have an increase of $1 million a month to the wage bill seems to be something that the country could afford. So the expectation is that the money could be paid, because the government seems to have money to pay for what it wants to pay for, but what it is obligated legally to pay, it is asking that it be deferred.
And we are going to take a very short break on this program. We ask the viewers to stay with us. There is a lot more to come in this discussion. When we return, I would love to hear from you your responses and the responses of your members to some of the things that have been put out in the public by the government. As you said, the last sit-down negotiation was December, 31st of December, until that meeting with the Labour Commissioner on Tuesday the 9th. But a lot of things have been said in the public between then and now. So I want to look at some of the things that have been said and the reaction of the union and the members to these things. So don't worry, we'll be right back.
Men are not made to physically abuse women.
This is something that has become a serious problem in our country, or has been a serious problem in our country. Abuse could present itself in many forms. It could be physical, verbal or emotional, and the most egregious, sexual.
It's not a good look. It's not right in no form. So domestic violence against women should stop. How can you hit a woman, beat a woman?
Every form of abuse has an effect on the individual abuse, on their family members, on children, and even the community as a whole.
I'm a man. I came out of a woman. I love my mother. I love my nieces. So to the children, if you're being abused, talk to somebody that you trust and get your message to the person.
This has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Home and your house gone. I never thought this would happen to me.
Told them it could happen, but they never paid me no mind. Never.
The whole road gone down the hill. Landslides happen all the time. Sometimes little, sometimes big. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can do something about landslides. Trees and shrubs on hillsides bind earth together and help stop landslides. Preserve vegetation. Stop landslides. Find out more at your local disaster office. A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
Sisters and brothers, we hereby inform all employers to cease and desist from these draconian measures, whether in unionized or ununionized workplaces. I repeat, we call on employers, both in unionized and ununionized workplaces, to cease and desist from these draconian practices. Please, don't misunderstand me. The employer must work with the union. Consultation. There must be dialogue. Please, employers, work with the union. In this period, we have to consult, and coronavirus did not take away the side industrial agreement or the right to negotiate. We are open to consultation, to talk with employers according to the law.
Welcome back to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair, and I have with me this evening Rachel Roberts, the president of the Public Workers Union in Grenada. We have Marvin Andel, the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers, and we have Andre Lewis, who is the President General of Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. These three people represent public workers across the board. And right now we're looking at an issue that is on the table to be settled of 4% increase that is due to the workers and the government's response to not paying this 4% and the reasons put forward. Now, gentlemen and lady, there has been no official meeting between yourself and the government, your employer, regarding the 4% issue for quite a while. But a lot has been said in the public. The government put out a news release through the Government Information Service, which outlined a number of reasons why the 4% can't be met. One of those reasons, Marvin, touched on that payment to Brenley, because the news release sought to put the raising of that money and the repurchase of those shares in a different category to the increase then that is due to the workers. The money is coming from the public purse, either way, as far as I'm concerned. So how do you categorize spending from the public purse? That it's okay to spend on this, but it's not okay to spend on that, when you already say you don't need parliamentary approval to spend the money. So what has been the response of the workers, even before I hear about the direction that is being taken? What has been the response when the workers who are due this 4%, whose salaries were docked way back when they hear and see this news release coming out of the government? How do they respond? Rachel?
Sister Sinclair, it was very unfortunate and very sad that our government of Grenada, rather than come back to the table and sit with the unions, saw the need to put out such a statement, to make workers appear to be greedy, to dehumanize and demonize public officers, teachers, etc. We are not greedy. We know that what we're asking for is our legal agreement to be honored. We know that what we're asking for is for the government of Grenada to pay us what was owed to us. You formed a legal agreement with us, and you are now not honoring that legal agreement. If you go to the bank and you borrow monies, you have to pay back those monies. And therefore, it means that you told workers, you are going to give us an increase. And that increase didn't come very easily. It came with a lot of struggle. And every time there is an issue with the government of Grenada, they seem to want to dehumanize workers, demonize us, make us look greedy, and pitch us in a negative light in the public interest. And listen, government of Grenada is saying to us that they took that money to pay WRB from grants and loans. When we examine the estimates of revenue and expenditure, and we note how much government had to pay WRB, some $220-something million. When we look at the estimates in EC dollars, government could only account for $116.8 million from the remainder of grants and loans that they did not spend for 2020. Because under the recurrent expenditure, they could only find $13.6 million. Under the capital expenditure, they could only find $103.2 million. And therefore, that certainly does not add up to 200 and something EC dollars or 63 million US dollars. And you see, government continue to spread the spin that they do not have money. It means that we cannot trust them. It means that they have all been singing the same song. I don't know if they gave them a song sheet, all the ministers of government, so that they would continue repeat that song, some recording that they have to continuously record, so that they would try to tie up the brains of the citizens of Grenada. into making us believe that they got those monies from grants and loans. But we know otherwise. When we analyze the estimates of revenue and expenditure, it just does not add up. It just does not add up. So we cannot trust our government of Grenada. We believe that they are not truthful to us. They are not telling us the correct information, and there must be some other monies somewhere. I don't know if they have monies in some baskets, cocoa baskets somewhere. I don't know, but monies must be somewhere that they could find the monies to pay. And you know what? Government of Grenada never seemed to make workers a priority, because anything that government wants to make a priority, they would find the monies to pay. They would find the monies to spend. WRB was a priority, so they found the monies to pay WRB. We are just not a priority for them. But you have to make the citizens, the workers who are in the trenches, working daily to make you look good, to help the country, to protect the country, to help in the social and economic development of your country. You need to show that you care for them. You need to show them that you appreciate the work that they do. Because what we found is, many years ago, you may remember that government says anything at any old time and accuses public officers. Our doctors, our nurses, our medical professionals were all dehumanized and called thieves, etc. You know, so it is not surprising that our government of Grenada is not a caring and loving government to its workers, the workers who are really ensuring the economic development of this country, the workers who are impacting this country in a positive way.
So let me interject. So this kind of feeling of being demoralized and not being given priority, this was the kind of feedback we were getting from the workers when they saw that we was put out by the government.
Especially our nurses and our doctors. They were really demotivated and demoralized, because already they are working under very, very trying circumstances. The environment under which they work, they have to work long hours and with minimal staffing, because if you know, the nurse to patient ratio at the general hospital is one that is wanting. There are a limited number of workers in the general hospital, especially our nurses and doctors, to take care and to provide the necessary service. And that became even worse because of the contract employment. A number of our nurses migrated due to the fact that they were under contract and they did not see a future for themselves. We have to say thank God for COVID, because COVID's...
Let me ask Andre, the President General of Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Your union represents a wide cross-section of workers, and in addition to that, you have a Caribbean connection sitting on the board of the regional union representation as well. Do you see, Andre, that the issues that are being faced by public workers in particular in Grenada, do you see these kind of issues anywhere else in the OECS or across the Caribbean?
Yeah, let me indicate that a number of these challenges are common in terms of the economy, etc. What may be of contrast is the government's response and engagement. So in Barbados, you have a particular approach being taken, one of inclusion, by and large between the government and the workers and the private sector and the social partners, etc. But in Grenada, what we find is that this government only seems to know the social partners when there is a crisis that seems to be getting out of its hands. So during the structural adjustment program, the Committee of Social Partners, after we made all those sacrifices and we did our patriotic and nationalistic duties, we were sidelined. you find in certain kits, the government has paid even bonuses or extra pay to workers despite the challenges and in spite of the challenges. So you find different approaches by government to a similar crisis. But what is instructive? I want to focus on the ease in which the government seem to have find that monies to pay Grenada. And we accept the important role that electricity plays in our country and the need for dialogue, etc., in terms of trying to manage cost of electricity, etc. But remember, leadership, one of leadership's responsibility is that of decision making and to be strategic in your decision making ability. And we are advancing, and the facts will prove for itself that the approach taken by the government to the WRB matter has landed our country in the government having to find close to 200 million EC dollars. And colleagues, let us start using our EC dollars. That's what we deal with. 60 million US sound as little money for people who cannot do the conversion. 60 million. It is close to 200 million EC dollars. The government has indicated that somewhere in 2013 or 2014 or thereabouts, WRB were calling for $12 a share. Government were prepared to pay, I think, $6 or thereabouts. At $12, even if the government had paid $12 a share at that time, at $12, that would have cost us, we would have saved roughly about $6 on a share, and therefore we'd have saved roughly 1/3 of the 163 million, which would have saved about 54 million EC dollars on the $12 a share. Taking into account, if we were to take the government figure of $13.2 million, the 4% will cost per annum for 2021. And we do not accept this figure because we know that the employment figures that they are using in the public sector is inflated. We know that. We have asked for information as to the amount of people over the years, and they have failed to give us that. But be that as it may, let us say we accept that figure. Saving 54 million EC dollars would account for about 4 years. 4 times 13.2 million will give you 4 years of a grace period in terms of money you could have had in the coffers. And by that time, this crisis will have finished, hopefully. Secondly, through the process of negotiations, and rather than trying to win WRB with a big stick, which it turned out that you could not have done, let us say that through negotiation, you're able to split the difference between 12 and 6 and come up with $9. That's an additional $27 million. So we have the view that the government, through its reckless approach, has squandered the ability to have saved us close to 81 million EC dollars. And therefore, the new Minister of Finance, who seemed to be better than the Minister of Finance who went out, who was given accolades as the best Minister of Finance in the region, all of a sudden, the new Minister of Finance, with a highly trained technical background, have been able to find close to 200 million EC dollars to pay WRB. And they can't find $1.something million per month or 13 million or 12 million EC dollars to pay our hard-working public officers. And therein lies the challenge, as Comrade Marvin has indicated. This has made it more difficult for our members to accept the government's proposal. And this must not be taken in isolation. You know. We are the ones who have always risen to the occasion to make sacrifices and continue to make sacrifices. We are the ones whose pockets were funged during the structural adjustment program, both the private sector and the public sector. But I'm dealing with the public sector now as that group. And we made those sacrifices. We paid the reintroduced taxes that have not gone away. And to make us appear as though that we are greedy and that we are only concerned about ourselves and we are not prepared to share our bread. Where is the other bread that the government has taken and squandered, right? In the shrimp farm and the other places, millions upon millions of dollars. And through the lack of astute judgment making, decision making, has landed us in the court and over the years, because these things cannot be taken in isolation. Our workers are always prepared to make sacrifices, but it must be reasonable sacrifices, and it must not be forced upon us by those who have shown recklessness in the management of our public resources.
Well, you mentioned social partners, and it brought me back to something which the Prime Minister said in recent Independence Day address. And I want to just share this with you guys. As Andre mentioned it, that the employer, your employer, the government, will find the social partners whenever there is some difficulty that has to be dealt with. So let me just share this with you. We'll listen to it for, I think it runs about 2 minutes or so. And then you will give me your response to what he has said and the reference to the social partners here as the vehicle which will take care of this issue that he has raised. Let me share this with you so we can all listen to it.
Unprecedented times necessitates strategic, innovative, and out-of-the-box thinking to find solutions that will soothe the desperate cries of those among us who simply have no means of helping themselves right now. We all must remember them and do what we can to help. Sisters and brothers, it is for this reason I plan to present a proposal to our social partners and by implication the country for the creation of a social fund that will be used to help the most vulnerable in our society. The concept is that every one of us who is working will contribute to this fund. I would lead by example, contributing a portion far above anyone else of my salary every month to help those in need. And I'll be encouraging my cabinet colleagues to do the same. Similarly, I would be encouraging everyone who's able to make a contribution to do so. Sisters and brothers, we are not going to Parliament to mandate anything. Our conscience should be our mandate.
Okay, so here you have the Prime Minister making a suggestion, not going to Parliament, to have the social partners deal with this fund to help those who are vulnerable and can't help themselves right now in the society. I definitely want to hear your response to this, but another break is upon us, so we will take the short break. And then I will be back with Marvin Andel, Rachel Roberts, and Andre Lewis as we look at some issues affecting public workers in Grenada.
has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Feel good facts.
Remember, if you have flu symptoms, do the right thing and stay at home to avoid giving it to others. Remember, you can be infectious up to a week after developing symptoms, so rest up and take it easy.
Welcome back to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair, and I have with me Margaret Andal from the GUT, Rachel Roberts from the PWU, and Andre Lewis from Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. And we are looking at some issues relating to public workers and an increase which is due to them, which the government has said we cannot pay. Now, before we went to the break, we looked at a clip from the Prime Minister at the Independence Day celebration where he made this address. And what he said was that he wants to set up a social fund. He's going to call on the social partners to manage this fund. And how it is going to be financed is through those who are working, contributing to it, so that they can help those who are poor and vulnerable and unable to help themselves at this time. Sounds like a very noble gesture. Marvin, how do you respond to this?
Well, philanthropy is a good thing, and you cannot fault the Prime Minister. He's good at what he does. And presenting the idea at this time is quite a sensible thing to do. I would just like to say that many teachers would like to contribute, and if they get their 4% increase, probably they will give consideration to contributing to the social fund. But as it stands, it will be difficult for them to make that contribution without the 4% increase. So we can consider it, providing that we get the increase that is due to us, something that we might be willing to consider.
Rachel, would the workers you represent be able and willing to contribute to this fund to help those who are less fortunate than them at this time?
I smile because the public officers that we represent, the majority of our membership are the poor and vulnerable. If I may say, all of our members are the poor and vulnerable. The 4% increase that we are about to receive could barely do anything for many of them who are maids and cooks and cleaners, etc. 4% increase means nothing to them. Very minimal. I shouldn't say mean nothing, but it would be a very minimal increase, a drop in the bucket. And considering that we have been just warned that the inflation rate would increase substantially within this country within the next few months, I cannot see how our members would be able to contribute to any fund. And as a matter of fact, many of us are already taking care of many poor and vulnerable persons within society, because we help in many different ways to cushion the effects for persons. Let me tell you, persons in Grenada now, all families are suffering, all families are in difficulty. And it seems to me that our Prime Minister told us some time ago, many moons ago, that he was worth some $19 million. By now, I'm certain that he is worth more. So when he says he would contribute from his salary, I believe he could contribute 3-5 times more than what he's saying he could contribute. And his contribution alone could probably do the gamut of what has to be done to help the persons in society. But we want to give people, we don't want to give people a fish a day. We want to teach people how to fish. So we don't want to encourage this kind of dependency syndrome that we seem to be adopting within our society, within our community. We want dignified Grenadian citizens who can uphold themselves and not be dependent on the government or dependent on some social fund. Government, the Prime Minister also said to us that he has a number of projects coming on stream. So it would be my thinking that he would ensure that these projects come on stream so that he could put our Grenadian people back to work, which would be better than having to contribute some monies to them every month and have them be so dependent. And how much can we contribute so that would assist? It would be like another tax for the citizens of this country, whatever contribution it is. Whether he says it is something that you have to do voluntary or otherwise.
Well, let me ask Andre. Andre, do you think this is a reasonable request of the social partners at this time, considering the economic fallout from COVID?
So let me address the following. First of all, I want to identify with the comment that this is a noble idea, and I'm taking it at face value. I am not going down the road that it may have been designed to try to make public officers look in a particular way, right? I want to give that the benefit of the doubt. And anyone, if this has been done, anyone who can contribute, as the Prime Minister said, is free to contribute. Yes, but that's who we are as a people. As a people, we are used to helping each other. And what is unfortunate is that in my view, too many times we have to see people doing motorcades, etc., to try to raise funds to assist themselves. And I hope that these are things that we can address structurally. However, be that as it may, as it relates to the social partners, I started off by saying that the social partners seem to be used as a convenient tool. Yes, seem to be used as a convenient tool. And because where were the social partners in addressing the challenges brought about by COVID in terms of decisions to have curfew, decision to have state of emergency, when you open, when you close, who should be allowed to open? The farmers were locked down for quite a while, while the traditional bourgeoisie class were allowed to sell their imported stuff, etc. And the social partners have not been engaged. There is not an all-inclusive approach to addressing the challenges brought on by COVID. Yeah? So, as I said, it is a noble idea, but it is not something that is strange to us. We have always been helping. What appears to be different now is that there may be an attempt to have a sort of central fund, which might be a duplication of, but to the best of my memory and knowledge, there's a ministry that runs programs for the needy. Yes, but that does not take away. That does not take away the need and the encouragement. I want to join in the encouragement. I want to join, not necessarily in that format, but I want to join and to extend this by calling on all of us who can assist our sisters and brothers to do that. And I'm aware that many of us are doing this. Many of us are not doing it and go and speak about it for people to know. Because we do these things with dignity here. Let me make that point. We do these things with dignity. So, and this is something that we do ever so often. COVID has caused us to even do more, even with the little that we have. But this is who we are as a people.
Yes, Andre, and I hear that, and I know, because I do. You know, there are families that you just assist because they are in a position where they are in need, you know, and you can't assist someone forever. So like Rachel said, you have to seek to teach the person how to make themselves sustainable. There is no way, not even at the level of the country, where you can continue to make someone dependent on a fund or dependent on a person for their daily subsistence. It just can't work. You assist a person in difficulty to help them get out of the difficulty, and then they are able to sustain themselves. And yes, Andre, yes, Rachel, with some dignity and, with some pride that they don't have to be a beggar. They don't have to be dependent. And we know that society is not what it should be. And persons who are dependent on others get treated a particular way. You look at what happens to people when they go to collect the government subsistence every month. They're not afforded the kind of dignity. They are not made to feel that level of self-worth as they would if they were going to collect their salary and going to the bank to cash a check, or going to do something that you have earned. But when you have to sit and depend on someone, I don't know that that is the way you want your residents and your citizens to feel long term. I would think union members that there would be some kind of plan. And when the government spoke to those projects, he spoke to it under the umbrella of an avenue being created to graduate youngsters from government programs where they seem to have been stuck and not able to get out because there's nowhere to go. So now I hear the reference to these projects, the 3 projects that are currently supposed to be underway in 3 different areas of the island. They are being referred to now as a vehicle that can drive some of these youngsters out of government programs.
I must admit that I was not able to listen to the whole address of the Prime Minister. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And just to back up a bit, just very quickly, if you may permit me, is that I know that these are not normal periods, right? And I'm absolutely certain, just to repeat, that the Public Workers Union, the Grenada Union of Teachers, the Technical and Allied Workers Union, the Commercial Industrial Workers Union, the Seamen, the Bank and General Workers Union have all increased their assistance, right, to members and people in the wider community. This is who we are as a people and as organizations. That's what we do. And anywhere that people could be assisted, right, in the immediate period, that should be encouraged. But it is another matter to try to make one feel guilty, right? To try to make one feel guilty. And some people may think that that's an intention, but I think the idea is too noble for us to sort of color it around our line at this moment.
Yes, I fully agree with you, because there are people out there, real people, who are hurting and are in need. And if you move around communities, you see them every day.
But this is not mutually exclusive. In other words, that has nothing to do, in our view, with our 4%. Let me make the point. This has not, as a matter of fact, it can assist, as Comrade Marvin has indicated, because we are now speaking of our engagement with government as an employer and we as employees.
Yes, absolutely. And I certainly take that point without thinking that it has anything to do with the 4%, because in my view, you would probably need more than 4% if you are going to take on this additional responsibility to contribute to this fund, separate and apart from everything else that you are doing. One salary can only stretch so far and no further. It's not infinite. It's a finite salary, and I'm sure that every single public servant in some way or another must have a budget. You know how much you're earning and you know what you can spend it on and how much you can spend. You have to have a budget. But guys, I want to get back to talking about this 4% and some of what has been put out in the public about the public workers, as Rachel would have mentioned earlier, and while comments are made which we will not seek to color or put under the umbrella of the 4%, there have been pointed comments made, that times are hard, you have a salary, you should be happy. Why can't you just forget about the 4% and enjoy the salary and enjoy the fact that you still have a job? And the government has been able to maintain everyone, to maintain the salaries. Why you guys just can't be happy with that? Marvin, why can't the teachers just be happy with having a job? You know, what's this about wanting back money? And you know that things stuff.
Yes. The fact is we are not asking government for an increase. Government has agreed by way of agreement to provide the increase. All we are asking is that what you have signed to you and you committed to by way of a collective agreement, you execute. And that's fair and reasonable. I find it rather unfortunate to make the statements that you should be fortunate that you have a job. Government cannot function or execute its function without public officers. So if we did not have a job, then we could not have had a government. So those comments are rather unfortunate when viewed in that light. If it was that we were engaging in negotiation, asking for an increase in salary, then that discussion may lend itself to that kind of argument from the government. It is not a line of argument that the government should take. The government is the one asking of the workers to give up something. The workers are not the one making a request from government. So if you want to take that approach suggests a kind of arrogance, I want to call it, that has no place in the current scheme of things.
Thank you very much for that. But you know, one of the things that usually happens on this programming is that we run out of time very, very quickly. It happens every time. And right now, we have to take another break. We are winding down. And when we come back this time, gentlemen and ladies, I want us to look at the current job climate, for want of a better description at this stage. The current job climate. What can be done from a union perspective to make it, I would say, better, to make it more comfortable, more reassuring for workers at this stage, especially workers in the public sector that I know both on the job and off the job have been called on to do a lot more, because many of them are still working but have now become single income households. And what kind of difference would a 4% increase make to their lives and to their standard of living? We will be right back on this edition of Time to Face the Facts to look at those issues with representatives of 3 of the major unions in Grenada representing public workers. Do not be afraid.
Men are not made to physically abuse women.
It's something that has become a serious problem in our country, or has been a serious problem in our country. Abuse could present itself in many forms. It could be physical, verbal or emotional, and the most egregious, sexual.
It's not a good look. It's not right in no form. So domestic violence against women should stop. How can you hit a woman, beat a woman?
Every form of abuse has an effect on the individual abuse, on their family members, on children, and even the community as a whole.
I'm a man. I came out of a woman. I love my mother. I love my nieces. So to the children, if you're being abused, talk to somebody that you trust and get your message to the person.
This has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Feel good facts.
Avoid the most common causes of spreading the flu. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue, dispose of it straight away, and either wash your hands or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
I remember when this beach was really wide, a place to picnic and play cricket.
And we used to go up to the end to get away from all the people. Now all the beach gone.
Coastal erosion. When the sea starts to come in and take the land away, everyone loses something.
Granny, look how the waves are washing right under that house.
Coastal erosion. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. What can you do to help stop coastal erosion? For one, don't drive four-wheel vehicles on seaside dunes. They loosen sand and destroy binding vegetation, causing erosion. Find out more about coastal erosion and other hazards at your local disaster office.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
The reality of this situation, sisters and brothers facing us now, is that while some are forced to make something out of nothing, others are demanding more and more. Those of us who are earning serious salaries must understand it's our time now, despite all the circumstances. We must reach out to those who have nothing. This is what we were told as a Christian nation. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Welcome back, viewers, wherever in the world you are. We are on Time to Face the Facts with Rachel Roberts, Marvin Andel, and Andre Lewis. We are looking at the current situation of workers not being able to enjoy the 4% increase, which was agreed on with their employer, because it has not been paid, and the employer has said, we cannot pay. We're asking you to forego it. But in the context of that discussion, I would love to hear from the union leaders how the workers are feeling about the present employment climate, which I know would probably have reduced some of their households to single income households. And how are they dealing with that situation? Andre, I'd love to hear from you on that one. How are the workers dealing with that?
Well, it is very challenging. It is very challenging. And I want to situate the following. Yes, we are discussing public sector, but as you rightly point out, it has to do with the workforce right through both private and public. And because the private sector is more driven by the maximization of profit, in some instances you have had where people have been laid off, retrenched, etc., because the bottom line is profit. And not just profit, but the maximization of profit. I want to compliment the private sector employers who continue to carry their workforce despite the challenges. And we have had to make compromises here and there and elsewhere. But it's also important to note that the government, by keeping on its workforce, this is also, and when the time comes, they most likely may use it as they've been doing for political mileages, right? So it's also an investment. And as they keep the employees employed, they're also contributing to the economic activities and recovery of the country. Because there is no doubt that in this period, with the preservation of jobs in the public sector, it brings more certainty to a certain level of economic activities, which is important for the recovery of the country. Yes, it is challenging. And workers have had to review to a large extent their spending pattern. We ourselves in the leadership of the different organizations, unions, have been encouraging our people to be very prudent in the managing of the resources. The question of health and safety is a big issue, because within the context of COVID, that unseen enemy, although there is a more, in this period, we are coexisting with the pandemic in a more, I don't want to say relaxed, because that's a wrong word, but certainly the level of anxiety that were there in, let us say, March, April, May, June of last year. All of the challenges are still there, but people have been able to get back to a sense of involving activities with a better level of comfort. Not that the threat is not there, but the coexistence, and that is why we are convinced that a human being will not die. We will rise, we will come out of this. Because psychologically, although the challenges are there, psychologically, you can see it. You can see people are moving about more free, right? Although they are, by and large, using their masks, keeping the distances, but we will survive. But the challenges are there, as you have indicated, Sinclair. And not only that the challenges are there as it relates to the question of employment or unemployment, but the challenges are there because we continue to assist each other. We continue to be concerned about our brothers and our sisters. And we recognize and accept that these are not normal times. We continue to accept that people are working from at home. There are a number of people who are working from at home. And that in itself brings challenges because the kids are at home. And even if the kids are not at home or they go out to school, and the teachers must be, not just the teachers, but the teachers, I'm just singling out the teachers, must be complemented, just as the police officers, the prison officers who are not able to be here. And we are speaking on their behalf. Let me just say, we are speaking on their behalf because they are also entitled to the 4% increase. They're entitled to that. And they continue to give human service. They continue to having to face the challenges where some of us might be able to call in sick. The police officers are the ones, and the prison officers are the ones who are outside day in, night out, who may not have an 8 to 4, 8 to 5 working hour, and who continue to face the challenges. So we want to compliment and take our hats off and salute our uniform comrades and colleagues outside as we have done to the teachers, to the public officers. They are public officers like nurses, doctors, and maids, and orderlies, etc. So the challenge is real, Ms. Sinclair. The challenge is real, but we have been able to find ways and means of coping, and that is why we need to put the context of the 4% increase. Because for a worker who makes $2,000 a month, which is high for a lot of public officers, $2,000 a month, that is basically $80 increase a month, which is less than $4 a day. There are a number of public officers that makes under $1,000 a month, and therefore that is under $40 a month, which is less than $2 a day. And what can that do? At the same time that we are speaking of the challenges, I am yet to see the figures that the cashier in the supermarket going down. I am yet to see that happening. And so for someone who gets a $40 increase, which is small amount of monies, but we grew up knowing that one cocoa fools a basket.
That's right. Now, Rachel, tell me, we have been looking at workers across the public sector for the purpose of this discussion here. And I noticed that you speak very, very passionately about these workers, as if you can actually feel what they go through on a daily basis and how they have to deal with their jobs, especially in these times when so much has changed and we have to take a new approach to things. as it may be. Now, I know that one of the things that the nation is depending on to help in this situation is the vaccines, which are already here and will be distributed. The workers in the hospital, especially frontline workers in general, have been listed as those on the priority list to get the vaccine. But I heard the Minister of Health say, while it is not mandatory, he would not expect that frontline workers would avoid taking the vaccine, because if they did, they may not be frontline workers anymore. I am not sure what he meant by this, but how will the union treat this vaccine situation for workers who may be on the front line and who may not want to take the vaccine because it's not mandatory, but for the purpose of their job, it may seem necessary for them to take the vaccine? Has the union given that any thought, and how are you prepared to deal with that issue?
This is an issue that we really have to sit down and discuss and come up with some ideas and some decisions on it, because the many conspiracy theories out there is definitely creating an issue for members. It's creating an issue for people all over the world, not just in Grenada, not just our membership. And whether or not we take a vaccine should not deprive us of the ability to perform our duties, really. We would hope that the vaccine that our government would choose would be one that the research, the appropriate research has been done. And we are confident that this vaccine is a safe vaccine. Because as I pointed out, the theories out there, the conspiracy theories out there are suggesting to us that these vaccines, a number of these vaccines, are not safe. We do not exactly know which vaccine. I have not heard which vaccine our government of Grenada would choose. But our healthcare professionals are the technical persons, and I think they're sensible and wise enough to make a determination as to whether or not they take a vaccine, because they are the persons actually dealing with these types of things on a daily basis. And I think the research that many of them may have done on the various types of vaccines, they could share with us, and they could educate us, and they could help guide us. So we would be relying actually on our frontline technical persons, our doctors, especially our doctors, our lab technicians, etc., whom we have not really mentioned a lot, but whom we need to give the proper salute, whom we need to congratulate on the excellent work that they have been doing to do the many PCR testing, etc., for us in this COVID period, and working around the clock and in very challenging situations, because I must say the occupational health and safety standards at the laboratory at this time is not very good. It is one that is very wanting. We look forward to when our members can be removed from that environment and placed into a safer working environment. We are told that it is coming. We have seen the new facility, but we don't know when. And we hope they would speed up that process, because it is very unsafe in the area that our members are presently functioning in. And we call on our employers to please look into this and speed up the process. They deserve to work in conditions that ensure that after leaving this place, after giving their years of service, that they could retire and retire in confidence that they would be healthy and safe in their retirement ages. They would not be plagued with all types of various diseases. But let me go back to the vaccine. I must say that I am aware of a number of health professionals in the USA and other parts of the world that have taken the vaccine, and people also that have taken the vaccine, different types of vaccines, and they are quite safe. Some have had mild reactions like dizziness, etc. But so far, the reports that I have received about the vaccines that they have taken, Moderna and the other one, they seem to be quite safe. And I don't know what vaccine we would get. I have heard that our Cuba, one of the islands that we are very close with, our close comrades from our Caribbean island of Cuba, are producing a vaccine, and a vaccine that is a natural vaccine. And I want to commend Cuba for that, for what they have done in being able to produce a vaccine under the situation, the challenging situation that Cuba has, knowing that they have an embargo on them and are not able to get the resources that they would want to, and can still produce a vaccine, and a natural vaccine. So I look forward to us even looking to Cuba to see how we could get the vaccine also, and because it's natural. So we have a level of confidence in it because of the natural nature of that vaccine. But as we look at a vaccine, I would give the benefit of the doubt to our technocrats to ensure that they choose something that is safe, something that the Grenadian public could be confident about, and something that when we take it, we do not have any negative reactions and we do not have any health challenges later on in life.
We are going to take our final break on this edition of Time to Face the Facts. And when we get back, union leaders, I want to hear from you. Where do we go from here? We have seen some industrial action already, and I want to know what is the thinking, even if you don't outline the plans, but what is the thinking of the union at this stage? How we go forward to settle this 4% impasse. Don't go away, viewers. We will be right back after this short break.
No one should live in fear of the person they love, children included.
This is something that is really becoming an issue within our country, and we need to make necessary steps to stop it.
It seems like sexual violence against women and children has become habitual.
Abusers, Mr. Sickle, it ain't macho to get on, so I said no, I said no, I said no, nowhere.
This has been a message from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment in collaboration with its social partners. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please feel free to contact us at 440-2269. And remember, a life free from violence is possible.
Home and your house gone. I never thought this would happen to me.
Told them it could happen, but they never paid me no mind. Never.
The whole road gone down the hill. Landslides happen all the time. Sometimes little, sometimes big. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can do something about landslides. Trees and shrubs on hillsides bind earth together and help stop landslides. Preserve vegetation. Stop landslides. Find out more at your local disaster office.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and Sedera.
Feel good facts. Remember, if you have flu symptoms, do the right thing and stay at home to avoid giving it to others. Remember, you can be infectious up to a week after developing symptoms, so rest up and take it easy.
The working class has once again proven itself indispensable both in the development and defense of our nation. And this current challenge compels all of us to look with different eyes on the value of work and on the value of each worker, the skilled and the so-called unskilled. It forces us to advocate for a world economic system where all workers are better appreciated and remunerated. This government stands in awe of all workers' commitment and sacrifice. Indeed, the whole of Grenada does. The little that we do in our part of the vineyard indeed pales in comparison to your collective commitment and patriotism. Within the Ministry of Labour and during the last year, we have settled scores of contentious labour issues, almost every one of them putting workers individually and collectively in better positions. While we have not done so with trumpets blasting, there have been many instances which your union leadership will know very well, where we have stood steadfast in guarding the rights of the workers. We have to continue to be careful that none of your hard-fought gains over generations of struggles are eroded. It is contentious work that deserves collective vigilance, but it is a work that we are committed to doing and that we shall all do together. Working together, brothers and sisters, means reasoning together. The most important thing that we can ever do is to keep all the avenues of dialogue opened, to understand the greater cause of the workers, especially the least among us, and to never see any contention or dispute as a zero-sum game. We can agree without being disagreeable, and we must never let genuine struggle put one set of working class people against another.
Welcome back to this edition of Time to Face the Facts. I'm your host, Beverly Sinclair, and I'm here with Marvin Andel, President of the Grenada Union of Teachers, Rachel Roberts, President of the Public Workers Union, and Andre Lewis, who is the President General of Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. We have covered a wide gamut of issues in the course of this program, and right now we want to look at where do we go from here? There's an issue on the table to be settled, with 4% which has been agreed on, which the government says it cannot pay, and which the union says we are sure you can find a way to pay it if you want to pay. We've seen some industrial action already. And Marvin, I will start with you. Your group has already certainly demonstrated that, this is serious and we need attention. Where do you go from here?
Well, thank you, most kind. We have a membership that has appetite for struggle. We are prepared to talk. We are prepared to write. We are prepared to speak. We are prepared to do whatever it takes to have this matter resolved. But we would spare no effort, diplomatically or otherwise, to have this matter resolved. We have a series of actions. Some have started. We have started with very mild industrial action, but hopefully we have already started the dialogue. We hope that the dialogue that we started via the Ministry of Labour will result in some speedy resolution. So the walk through the tongue was to send a message as to the seriousness that we have as it relates to pressing our demands. And in the coming days, you can expect that there will be a gradual escalation of our activities and action. But we are open to dialogue to have the matter resolved.
And you are still expecting some response coming out of that meeting you had with the Labour Commissioner?
Yes, we are hopeful that some form of or some pathway to a resolution of this impasse would be created, but we are not solely dependent on that. In the meantime, we continue to press our demands industrially.
And Rachel, what is the thinking of your union? How are you leaning towards a solution? Is industrial action on the table for the Public Workers Union as well? And
our union believes that the collective bargaining approach means that we must have continuous dialogue. We must sit at the table and negotiate. And we would continue the process. We believe in that process. And we have said to the government, we are open to sitting down and talk, because we do not believe that our government has the unilateral right to just want to do as they will. This is a legal matter, because our collective bargaining agreement is a right, our 4% is a right. We have signed a legal document, and we believe that it should be honored. And government of Grenada cannot on its own believe that they could just decide what they would do. There must be some agreement. There must be some discussions with us as a union, rather than government putting all the negative statements out. We believe that they must come to the table and have some kind of conversation with us as unions. And we have written to them and we have told them so. But as we know, the collective bargaining also has a grievance process. And it has a resolution, a process for resolving issues. And we are very open as trade unionists. That is the way we know things must occur. And so we are very open and willing and ready to follow that process when it comes. And we are not prone to want to be out there in the streets. But if it is necessary, if it becomes necessary for us to take that type of approach, because we have been taking very mild industrial action, we have not indulged in any very outlandish industrial action, but we believe that there is an amicable win-win solution to this, and we hope that good sense would prevail, and that our government of Grenada would not want to dehumanize and demonize public officers, but would value and appreciate the service that we give to this country, because we are the ones actually helping in the economic and social development of the country. Our contributions that we make actually help in that manner to get government to where it wants to go. It is our members in the background doing all the hard work, the dedicated service that we give.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And I give Andre the last word. How do we go forward? What is going to happen if February comes, this money is not paid, and the government digs in its heels and say, we can't?
My comrades have already identified the different possibilities and probabilities, and it means that everything is on the table. But it is not something that we are doing because we want to do it. All that we are requesting, and I want to make this appeal as best as I could. We call upon our government, the government of Grenada, as our employer, to abide by the signed collective labor agreement and pay the 4% increase as was agreed upon. I think that's the best that they can do. It is in nobody's interest in this COVIDious times to try to take a bullying approach to a resolution of this matter. You owe us, you owe the workers.
On that note, you owe us, you owe the workers, so you have an obligation to pay. I want to thank you, Rachel, thank you, Andre, and thank you, Marvin, who departed from us a few minutes ago. But I want to thank you all for taking the time to air these issues. They have been aired and they will continue to be aired, because personally, I don't think we should be seeking to cause division and sow seeds of discord among workers and the people they serve. We're a small nation, of a small population, and the more we can strive for harmony and unity, the better it is for all of us. Why can't we just get along, as they say, instead of seeking to divide and put people against each other? 47 years old, last independence, we need to get past that and deal with each other as mature individuals, so that we can seek solutions that work and that can move the country forward instead of holding it back. I certainly wish you guys all the best as you go forward to get this agreement implemented so that the workers who are now carrying the brunt of the country in many ways, considering the changes that COVID-19 have brought, that they can feel more comfortable and relaxed as they go forward with their duties and continue to do what they have been doing, which is to serve this country to the best of their ability in their various capacities. I look forward to seeing a positive outcome. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in and staying with us for this program. And I invite you to be right back here the next time for the next edition of Time to Face the Facts. Bye-bye.
In order to get the country up and running, we must be united. Look out for one another. Be disciplined in all you do as we struggle to eliminate COVID-19. Workers, remember we have an important role to play in the control of COVID-19. We need to follow the protocol as laid out by the Ministry of Health. Let us wash our hands regularly, use our hand sanitizers, wear our masks when we are leaving our homes, and practice social distancing of 6 feet.
There are several practical measures you can take to protect yourself from the new coronavirus. One of the most important is regular, safe, and effective hand hygiene, using soap and water or alcohol-based hand rub. Here are the steps recommended by WHO to follow. You too can have safe and clean hands anywhere. Now I'm calling on the world to take the WHO Safe Hands Challenge to be ready for coronavirus.